Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nugent webinar entitled What Financial Institutions Must Do Today to Help Small Businesses with PPP Loan Forgiveness. My name is Pat Howard, and I'll be your host and the moderator today. First, I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. The response has been overwhelming, and we are excited to talk about PPP loan forgiveness, Nugent, and what's going on in the industry. Joining us today is Jim Marous, the widely recognized financial industry strategist. For those of you who aren't familiar with Jim, Jim is a top 5 fintech influencer, is a co-publisher of the Financial Brand, the owner and publisher of the Digital Banking Report, and a frequent contributor to Forbes and numerous other industry publications. We also have a co-presenter today, Encore Rawat, who is Associate Director, Products and Solutions at Nugent. Our agenda for today is first, Jim will talk about the journey of the SBA Paycheck Protection Program so far from the viewpoint of financial institutions. After that, Encore will take us deep into how Nugent can help financial institutions make loan forgiveness a frictionless process. At the end of the presentation, we'll be having a question and answer session, and we request you to type your questions in the question window of the GoToMeeting app anytime during the webinar, and we will answer as many as possible at the end of the session. With that being said, Jim, over to you, please.
Hey, it's great to be here. You know, when we talk about the PPP loan program, it's very easy to see that it doesn't necessarily bring upon us a real great feeling in that the program, while it had a good foundation and a good noble cause, the reality is both the first wave and to a degree the second wave didn't go as planned. I'm sure I don't have to tell any of you on the phone today that from implementation through to today, it has not been a smooth road. Not only was there a flaw in the way it was actually delivered to financial institutions, I feel I'm a Clevelander, and I remember the Cleveland Browns leaving town in a moving van late at night. Well, that's kind of how the government delivered the PPP loan program to us. It was delivered to us late on a Friday night and had us all scurrying, and immediately made many of us not look good, either from the government perspective or from the financial institution perspective. The challenge is, for a small business, that's not an excuse. It wasn't an excuse then, it's really not an excuse now. It is our role as financial institutions to take this opportunity and to build relationships, not tear them down. Not have it be a situation where we're in it and we keep on blaming someone else for the unpreparedness or the information around what needs to be done. So I think what we have to do is we have to realize that right now, I think it's about 4.5 weeks out from the first wave, we really have to take it upon ourselves to build the communication, build the relationship, and make sure that the small businesses don't fail, because it's really not the loan they needed. They need the forgiveness that comes after the loan. They need it to be more like a grant to pay their employees and to build business going forward. You know, the challenge is, on the next slide, is at the end of the next day, we really were talking about businesses that were closed. And not only were businesses closed, but we were closed. So we kind of had a situation that we never imagined, which was needing to serve a community of small businesses in our neighborhoods, in our local markets, with services that they very much needed quickly, because they were, for all intents and purposes, going out of business at the same time that we weren't open either, not in the traditional sense. So as we look at the PPP program on the next slide, we'll see that overall, the big banks dominated the distribution. That's not to be surprising. In most cases, they aligned with the biggest small business lenders. Now, in the case of Chase and Bank of America and BMO Harris, they really had a relatively low share of PPP loan volume given their share of the small and medium business market. But when you look at it overall, again, it went to the bigger players and it went to the biggest biggest businesses. What we have to realize, though, there are a lot of victories here. We have a lot of examples. We've been researching for the Financial Brand and the Digital Banking Report, where a lot of the small and mid-sized organizations did very well in serving their local markets. In some cases, you had like Frost, you had Zions Bank, you had M&T Bank, you had Citizens Bank of Edmonds in Edmond, Oklahoma, that worked throughout the weekend to make it so they could process as many loans as possible, moving from a manual paper-based system to a digital system, thanks to a partnership they had with an outside vendor. And I think this is where the real key is this is a great example where partnerships can make a much better overall experience for the small businesses, for the banks, and actually to a degree for the government. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones, the Small Business Administration, it's going to be the ones that actually have to pay off on these loans and these forgiveness options. On the next slide, you'll see that many community businesses were left behind. If you look at this loan chart, you'll see that the up to $100,000 loan size represented about 75% of the loan count, only about 17% of the loan amount. What overall we found out was only about 6% of total business in the US were served in the first wave of PPP loans. Now, what does this tell us? It's facts, and that's great, but it doesn't tell us very much, except it says that in our communities, the communities that we have served, the communities that we continue to have a relationship and a responsibility for, as we look at serving our communities, we talk about all the time, it's not how we serve the community when things are going well. It is how do we serve the community when things aren't going well. And in this case, in many cases, they aren't going well for the small business, and they're not necessarily going well for us. What we have to do as organizations, we have to be upfront, proactive, very transparent, and instead of passing the blame, which really, if you're a small business owner, you realize that's the last thing you want to hear. You really have to step up the plate and say, now that we've given you this loan, how can we make it so that every part of the process from here on out, even if it starts today, goes better than it did the first time? And I'm going to give you an example. When the PPP loan program was first announced, I reached out to my bank. It is a bank that was one of the leading PPP loan generators that was shown on the previous slide. I asked, how can I find out if I'm eligible, if I can get any PPP money to help pay for my employees? I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do it, but I wanted information. Number one, no one got back to me. Now, I may have gone down the wrong channel, but I found that Twitter seemed to be a pretty good channel to get some kind of reaction. I did get a reaction, but still no response. On the other hand, I got general emails from my bank that said, if you're interested in the PPP loan, be sure to go to the website and see what information we have there that may help. If you have an online banking account, sign in that way. If you don't, sign up for online banking here. Now, two things about that. Number one, I had an online banking relationship for my business. So if you can't even personalize it to that level, you're not giving me much assuredness that you're going to be able to take care of me. Secondly, you know about my business, or you should. You know about the relationship I have, which you should. But what you've done here is in your email, you actually tried to sell me online banking and tell me to do the work to find out if I'm eligible. That's really not the best customer experience, and certainly not a way to build loyalty. And what's going to happen is, because of the way the bank handled this in my relationship, where for January and February, they reached out to me twice to see if I want to come in and consolidate my retirement funding, What they did is they have been absent. They've been AWOL. They've been silent since March. I will be closing my relationship with them once the branches open up again. And I'm going to make it very clear to them why that happened. They weren't there when I needed them most. On the next slide, you'll see that community, not only were community banks left behind, but they didn't always go to the most hard-hit industries. As you can see, the construction industry, the professional services industry, the manufacturing, social assistance, and healthcare, all were very large. But you have to get pretty far down to get to accommodation food services, which is hospitality. And when you really get down to administrative support, things of this nature, it was even smaller. So what happened was the industries that probably needed it the most on a localized basis were pretty much left on the street, weren't given that opportunity. This again can create really challenging times with regard to communication. So where do we go from here? On the next slide, you'll see that really right now, we're at the loan moment of truth, the PPP loan moment of truth, the forgiveness phase. And how do we go about maximizing the opportunity to make up for lost ground? On the next slide, you'll see a quote that I love from Ron Chevlin, the Director of Research at Cornerstone Advisors. He's also senior contributor to Forbes. He says, with insufficient guidance about PPP loan forgiveness from the SBA and with conflicting announcements from Congress and IRS concerning the tax implications, banks who participate in the program are about to get hammered with questions and complaints about the program. Now, as challenging as it was when we first introduced and took loan applications, this is going to be even more challenging because this is a harder process. So let's go to the next slide and let's talk about the 8 keys to success. First and foremost, provide proactive communication. Even if you don't have an answer, but you realize small businesses are asking the question, it is not wrong to be proactive and let businesses know, we do not have this answer yet. We will let you know as soon as we have it. It'd be good to personalize the message. Personalize it based on the type of business that they are. Make sure they know that you've at least taken a look at the application process, the loan you gave them, and know them. Your customers want you to know them, understand them, and reward them with information and proactive guidance. Secondly, tied to the first guide is give real-time updates. As soon as you know something, even if it hasn't been completely vetted, get it out there to the marketplace. And you have to realize that not everybody reads information the same way. In my case, I don't read emails nearly as well as I read texts. In addition, on my phone, I have something where if I don't know where the phone number's coming from, I don't pick it up. So another key to success is making sure you use a multi-channel approach. You have to look and say, just because I contacted them in one channel doesn't get me off the hook that I contacted. Yes, it gives you an excuse. It lets you say, well, you know, we sent an email. Well, somebody may not have opened it. It may have been blocked. There's a lot of spam filters out there now that they may not get all the information you sent to them. So not only should you be going on multiple channels, text, email, phone, but you should also be doing it multiple times. You may even want to reach out and say, let us know that you're at least getting this communication and giving them options for which way would you like us to connect with you. The next step is to help the small businesses collect the needed paperwork. You have to assume that while the construction firm that has an accounting firm working for them may know exactly what to collect, the small restaurant or the small retailer down the street probably doesn't. They need to be handheld during the process. Now, the good news is if you do that well, it will serve you well because you won't have to ask them again. If you proactively tell them what they will probably need and overassume what they're going to need, then they'll be prepared. The fifth step is to define your review process. Once you get this paperwork, is it incumbent upon your team to get together and know exactly how are you going to review the data that's collected? How are you going to make sure it's thorough? How are you going to make sure that this is going to be kicked back to you and you'll have another wave of communication you would need with your customers? So again, it's a matter of just making sure that you proactively communicate, you provide real-time updates, use multiple channels, you help the small business collect the paperwork, and you define your review process to say, is the paperwork I received adequate to go forward? You obviously need to standardize your data collection. You need to determine what is the data I will need to do the best possible job on behalf of my small business. If there is ever a time when you're wearing the hat of a small business advisor, it is now. The future loyalty of that business, and many of you went out there aggressively and generated new loans, and as a result, you have possibility of brand new relationships. This is where you really shine or fail. You then want to make sure, and this is probably the most paramount right after the proactive communication, is to digitize a process. Those organizations that built a digital gateway to not only generate the loans, but now to get the loans forgiven will succeed the best. Why? Because you've already understood that the paper-based process, while possible, is by far the worst way to go. It's not only bad from the standpoint of being able to implement the forgiveness cycle with the government, but even worse, on any level, if you have to be questioned about what was collected, how was it collected, what information was provided, it really messes up the 8th step, which is the audit trail. When you look at everything that's being developed here, when everything's looked at, what it really means is you need to do what really the banking industry has been asked to do on many fronts, ranging from the stimulus checks that were sent to how you handle overdrafts on accounts, and everything else is that communication is key. And if you have a digital process, if you have a strong partner in this process, and you have the ability to always reconnect and reconcile and find places where there may be gaps, to be able to do all this makes the entire process relatively seamless and friction-free for the small business. Again, while we have a lot of excuses as to why it may not go smoothly, the small business owner, the accountant of the small business, the major officer of the small business, is in a lot worse shape than we are. We're going to be going back to our jobs. Maybe the jobs are going to be different. Maybe even the location of where we're going to be serving our clients can be different. But almost everybody who applied for this loan, they're applying for the loan simply to get paycheck forgiveness. This does not give them money for operations going forward. Many people have extended their personal lines of credit. Many people have tapped out their credit cards. This is how small businesses run. Nobody expected to be shut down for 2 to 3 months. And business will not go back to normal. So I'm now going to turn it over to the team from Nugent to go over a little bit of what they've developed to help banks serve their customers, their small business clients better. Thank you. We might have somebody on mute.
Yeah, Ankur.
Hi.
Get started.
Yep. And
Go
thanks,
ahead.
Jim, for those. Thank you, Jim, for those amazing insights about not only the challenges, but also the ways to handle and tackle those challenges in the loan forgiveness. So I'll be continuing with the message that has been laid out by Jim in terms of the 8 keys to success in the loan forgiveness process. Okay, and you see that even with Nugent's solution, we have taken these as the key pillars which have formed the building blocks of our solution. So I'll take you through all of those in terms of how we have incorporated those into our system. Now, before we go on to that, one of the things that I wanted to highlight here is that this is not something that we're doing for the first time. It's something that we have been doing for the last 28 years. Okay, with the inception of Nugent in 1992, we have been helping a lot of banking and financial institutions, and we have built-in solution accelerators within our platform. Now, these platforms and the agile workflow tool that we have helped us in quickly ramping up the solution for the PPP loan origination process. And with that, we were able to help the financial institutions, 20 plus financial institutions, and disburse billions of dollars in loans. Now, while it really makes a great story for the success of the tool, but the real value of that is in terms of the accolades that we get from the institutions highlighting that they have been able to help their small business. So that's a real satisfaction for us, for the institutions, as well as for the borrowers. Okay. So again, taking a segue from Jim's takeaways, the very foremost thing, as he mentioned rightly, in terms of the borrowers wanting the information, so all they need is the information and visibility as to what is happening right now and what kind of data they need to collect. So we are providing built-in communication strategy within our systems and providing messaging on what, when, and how of the forgiveness process. Okay. So what is the information that they need to collect in the coming times? Okay. When do they need to submit this, and when will they be ready for initiating these applications? And how do they get hold of that information? Okay. So if they have to calculate the FTEs, if they have to check the other expenses, what is the right source of document? So these are the kind of proactive emails that Nugent solution can generate from the institution's perspective to the borrowers who may be eligible right now, will be eligible in coming a couple of months. Okay, so these are clear and frequent communication from Nugent system. Secondly, Jim talked about the omni-channel and multi-channel approach. So our solution has that critical capability any tool should have in this process, which is the online self-service portal for the borrowers. Now, while they are receiving these communications, whenever they are ready with whatever information they have collected, they would like to continue their journey with complete assistance and guidance. For that, Nugent solution provides an intuitive online portal embedded completely with your websites, aligned with the links on your web pages, and also with the branding guidelines. The borrowers, we understand that this process may take time in terms of data collection, so there will be a requirement for the borrowers to stop the application, save it, and continue again. So those features and functionalities are already in place to ensure that borrowers take their time and as per their convenience, complete the application. From a visibility perspective, we are providing real-time checks using Nugent system. So even after they have submitted the application, okay, you can really expect a lot of calls and clarifications or questions from the borrower. To ensure that those calls are reduced, we are providing real-time status on the portal itself. So the borrowers have this self-service capability to come and check what is the status, has the loan forgiveness been approved, whether institution has already sent this to SBA or not. And if there is any additional documentation required from the borrowers, they're able to again come back to this portal along with the email alert and upload those documents here. Okay. So what we are doing is we are reducing any kind of friction that could happen in terms of you getting calls or some of the documents missing from the process for this particular solution. Secondly, while the SBA guidelines have been out for borrowers and the instructions are pretty much laid out in a comprehensive manner in the form, still we would assume that borrowers will have a lot of questions. They will not understand certain items, and even if they understand, they will have a lot of confusion and multiple ways of interpretation. To ensure that everybody understands the process in a similar way, we are providing continuous guidance and support for the borrowers on the online portal itself. The very first thing, as Jim highlighted earlier, if the borrowers have already applied for this loan, they have already got this loan from you, they will have a question. You already know us, you know about my business, so why should I fill in the details for the SBA form again? Okay, so for that, what we are doing is, after a due diligence and authentication, we are pre-populating most of the borrower details, which avoids any kind of data entry from the borrower side. So this is the information that we will already have from your existing loans. Secondly, anything which might be inconsistent and filled in by mistake by the borrowers, we are able to alert them of the consistency of the data. For example, if they already had an EIDL loan which was submitted as part of the original application and they did not enter or add the EIDL amount here, we are able to populate a message that, hey, this was the information and what you are providing now is a bit different from the initial application. So is there any revision you want to make, or do you want to continue with that with a special reason? The third thing that we are adding into the solution, which really helps the borrowers in terms of having the tooltips, the FAQ links, frequently asked questions links, and these all conveniently placed in the relevant section. So we understand that there are a lot of nuances with the instructions. Somebody leaving the organization and even after the rehiring option, not joining the organization or the borrower. So how are those handled? How are the sole proprietors, FTEs handled? So all of those questions are clearly answered within the FAQs for the borrowers. Now, this is the most critical part of the solution, which has been, the epicenter of the forgiveness application. So, whatever calculations, instructions have been laid out in the guidelines from SBA, we have already incorporated all of those in Nugent's online portal. So, these worksheets are available in the online portal itself, as well as the borrowers have the options to download this, complete it offline, and then upload it back into the online portal. Okay, so this kind of flexibility provides the borrowers with the time that they need to capture and complete this application. Secondly, if the borrowers already have this kind of data available, they can simply add it onto the application. This is just an enabler for the borrowers to capture the data in a manner which is consistent with the SBA. In fact, we've been hearing from a lot of our customers and the institutions who have already onboarded with us that they want to make this as a mandatory item to ensure that it is consistent for all the borrowers and it does not open the chances or gates for errors in the calculation. So all the complications related to the FTE calculation, different covered periods, different reference periods, and the rules for safe harbor guidelines, all of those are already baked in. So from the institution perspective, once the borrowers submit the data in this format, all you have to do is ensure that they have not done any typos or entered any wrong information, because the other items like the calculation guidelines are already in there. Now, based on this particular calculator, we are able to pre-populate the complete application. So the same calculation sheet or the worksheet allows us to pre-fill the data for Schedule A. It allows us to apply the calculations for forgiveness amount as well. Okay, so with this data, all these details are automatically filled in. Again, because you may want to provide the borrowers with some kind of flexibility in how they enter this information, they still have that. They can edit the information here on the portals and provide the supporting documentation. Okay. Finally, Jim rightly mentioned that one of the critical aspects of the solution would be a digital channel, completely making the process digital. So we are also enabling that to ensure that to whatever extent we are able to make the process paperless, digitized, it really adds value to the overall processing cycle. So while we are able to pre-fill the SBA 3508 form for the borrowers, they also have e-sign capabilities. So we can integrate with the institutions' instances of e-sign, whether it is DocuSign or Adobe Sign, and we are able to let the borrowers complete the application online. So there's no need for them to print a document for the SBA form. Secondly, we do understand not all the borrowers will be comfortable with electronic signatures, filling the data in electronic forms. So for them, we also have an option wherein they can download a pre-filled copy. They can print it, sign the application form with that pre-filled data, and upload it back into Nugent system. So these are the small items or small features which really adds value, wherein the borrowers are not entering these details manually in the paper, and all they have to do is just fill in and upload the completed application. Finally, we are able to apply rules and ensure that you are doing an intelligent document upload. So if the borrowers have highlighted that they did incur the expenses on mortgage interest, the rent, we make it mandatory for them to upload the relevant documentation. Now, while we can have these documents as optional, it already makes sense to ensure that they are giving you whatever is required to process the application at the first instance. Because any item which is missed during the application is nothing but a scope of rework and added communication between you and the borrower. Okay, so we have all of these functionalities available to upload different documents which are required as an evidence of for those expenses. So throughout the process for the borrowers, as you would have seen, we do have a complete and continuous guidance for the borrowers, enabling them to auto-calculate the payrolls and then further schedule and the complete application, and finally submit this. As and when they submit it, they do have the capabilities of continuously monitoring if their loan requests have been, forgiveness requests have been approved or not. Okay. Now, while these are submitted, these are actually sent automatically into Nugent's workflow. Now, this is a tool which is essentially important for the lenders because it actually gives you a single picture of the loan file right from the data that was initially submitted for the loans to the data for loan forgiveness, the complete application. It is all available on a single screen for the lenders. Okay, and as Jim highlighted earlier, it's important for you to also decide on the finalize on the review process, how you will be communicating with the customers, borrowers, and are you allowing for any specialized handling of critical requests? Okay. So as we are aware, SBA will be auditing the loans above $2 million. So it might be of help to have different queues and categorize those forgiveness requests to be handled by different profile of users. So Nugent solution provides those capabilities of segregating the type of work and assigning it to right people to ensure a specialized handling and a quick processing. Any exceptions that might be there? So we do understand that it's not going to be an easy road in terms of for the borrowers to be able to capture and update all the information. So there'll be instances wherein you will need to communicate with the borrowers and within Nugent system, the provisions are available for the lenders to highlight what kind of exception it is. Is it an incomplete application? Are there any items which are inaccurate, or if there are inconsistencies in that, or if you think that it's a fraudulent transaction? Based on these type of exceptions, you can route it to the right department. And again, from the Nugent system itself, automated communications can be sent to correct these exceptions. Okay. If the borrowers need to upload documents, additional documents, within the email, they will have a link to which they can upload the documents. Okay. So rather than sending the lenders as an email, which might be lost, which might not be able to be traced back, we have provided the online portal for all the borrowers. But assuming that, if everything goes right, if you have resolved all the exceptions, collected whatever was required for you to do a quality check, sanity check for the forgiveness as compared to the documentation, if everything is right as per the approval cycle or approval hierarchy, we're able to take a decision from the lender's perspective on this particular page. And whatever actions are being taken here from an audit perspective, these are critical because our system is recording all the data from the beginning till the end, which is available for the auditors in future. So who took the actions of the decision? Okay, who approved the forgiveness request? Was it a full or partial forgiveness? What was the reason for all of that? So all these details are tracked and recorded within Nugent's work platform. Again, the borrowers will always have visibility and involvement throughout the process, so they'll not feel left out, in terms of information not updated for them. So they have the method for the online portal for the status check. They do have automated emails that will be routed from Nugent system on any changes in the status. So if it has been highlighted as an exception, if it is waiting for the borrower's documents, or if it has been approved by the institution and sent to SBA for final approval. So the borrowers need to be involved in that, and that's how we are approaching the solution. Finally, one of the things that we are reducing the burden for all the financial institutions is that we are able to generate the 1502 reports automatically and also submit this to Colson. Okay. Now, this particular process does not require any manual touch point. So all we would need is during the initial stage, we'll require the data for existing loans from the institutions along with this information. And as soon as these forgiveness requests are approved by you, we can, on a regular interval, generate these reports in the formats required and automatically submit to Colson via emails or SFTP. Now, this is again one of the features which a lot of institutions have highlighted that it's a key value add, and a lot of them are getting onboarded on Nugent solution. Finally, whatever is happening throughout the process, from a management perspective, from the visibility perspective for the lenders as well as other stakeholders within the institution, it's actually the reporting which is proof of the pudding for you. So we do provide real-time reports on the complete process cycle. So any process insights, whether it is in terms of the status of forgiveness applications, how many applications have been approved, rejected, partially approved, to the exceptions, what kind of exceptions are coming up? Are the borrowers not submitting all the documents, or are they really making mistakes with a single type of error? So we are able to generate those reports and take proactive actions to resolve anything that can be corrected. The third thing is the generation of 1502 report, and as we mentioned, automatically submitting that to SBA is something that's a touchless processing for you. And finally, if so happens, if there are any fraudulent applications that might be identified, you can tag those and again take a further due diligence and actions on those reports. So these are some of those reports in terms of the loan forgiveness request summary. If you are categorizing your loans above $2 million, any advance purchases that you might make, exceptions, or any low value forgiveness request. All these reports are generated in real time, which really means that you're not waiting for a historical report to come out of system. These are all proactive and can also alert if you are waiting for or if you want to be reminded in case of an event. Okay. Similarly, we can also generate daily forgiveness reports from the system, and these can be automatically sent to each lender's inbox. Okay. So we can schedule the reports every Monday morning or every morning. You can get these into your inbox. So I'm about to conclude the presentation from my side, but wanted to conclude with the messaging that Jim provided to us and how we have baked all of those keys and the pillars of successful loan forgiveness into our solution. So we did talk about the built-in communication strategy on regular basis with all the information to clearly notify the borrowers and let them be aware of what is required and when. Similarly, we did touch upon the borrower self-service portal, which is, I think, a critical component to ensure that borrowers have everything that they need from the method of submission along with the guidance and support throughout the process. So each and every field that we have on the portal has a text tooltip along with the help guidelines. We talked about Omni channel. So while we have the portal, we do have options for the lenders to initiate these applications on behalf of borrowers. So if some of the borrowers are proactive, they have already completed the form and they are submitting that physical form with the documentation. Again, the lenders have that option of initiating those applications within Nugent solution. We touched upon the workflow, which aligns to your review process. So if you are taking a conservative approach of a thorough due diligence, or if you are taking an approach wherein you want to take straight through processing of certain forgiveness requests, so the solution aligns to that and ensures that you're meeting the guidelines from SBA. We have put in place the Payroll Calculator, which is a standardized data collection mechanism. It's a protected sheet which will ensure that there are no errors from the SBA guidelines. And if the borrowers are taking that as a single point of data collection, we are able to ensure that for the reviews also, it is fairly simple and easy for all the lenders. Finally, for the paperless workflow, all the documents are digitally uploaded. We do have integrations into eSign. And again, with all this data available within a single system, which is Nugent's workflow, you're able to also handle the future audits that may be required. Okay. So we'll now open the forum for any questions. And Pat, you could probably check the questions and let us know.
Sure. Thank you, Encore. Everybody, if you're not familiar, if you press the red arrow up in the upper right-hand corner, it will show you where you can ask questions. So please go ahead. We do have a few so far. The first one is, if the customer does not provide enough information with the original forgiveness request, can they access their application at a different time and upload more information without starting over?
Yes, absolutely. And we do understand that that is going to be the practical reality. And yes, the solution has the save and continue functionality wherein borrowers can enter the data, whatever they have, save the application, and then continue from the same point without losing any data that they might have filled.
Okay, next question is if all the attendees will be provided a copy of the presentation.
So we are recording this webinar, and I think based upon the the planning by the marketing team. This recording can also be shared, and you can also connect with us on the website to download the recording.
Okay, next question. If the borrower adds additional info to their portal, is the bank notified somehow so that they know the information has changed?
So to ensure that there is a consistency in the process itself, what we have done is that whatever information has to be submitted can be submitted before the final submission of the application from the borrower's perspective. Once they have uploaded the information, it's up to the lenders for review. Now, if the lenders request anything else, they can surely send the emails to the borrowers who can upload this information on the portal itself. But we are recommending that till the time borrowers have not uploaded the complete application and complete documentation, we will let them complete that and then submit into the system.
Next question is, can you provide details on how the solution is secured and encrypted?
Yes. So we are, the solution is hosted on Amazon Web Services, and all the data is completely secured during the transaction or at rest. Okay, and we are able to provide the detailed SOC reports to ensure that we are able to satisfy the due diligence and the security questions or concerns from all the institutions. And please keep in mind that this solution has been deployed for more than 540 customers across the globe, with more than 20 plus institutions using it for PPP and 200 plus banks. So it's something that has cleared all of those security questions and concerns that may be there. But if you feel, we can feel free to connect with us on the website, and we can surely provide some more details on that.
Okay, the next question is concerning the application being sent to the SBA and whether that's the lender's responsibility after receiving the completing application or Nugent's.
So as part of the current requirement based on the SBA guidelines, SBA is requiring the institutions to send 1502 report with the updated data on the forgiveness. So we are able to generate that from Nugent system and submit it automatically to Paulson, which is the preferred source of submission.
Okay, there's a few different questions on how is the system priced and what are the costs.
So feel free to connect with us on the website, and somebody from our team will get in touch with you to discuss this further.
Okay. If the loan is only partially forgiven, does the product include the ability to modify the note electronically through your tool?
Yes. So a Nugent system can generate the note with the updated data, and we can also integrate with eSign to have that electronically confirmed from the borrowers.
Next question is, does the system apply logic to missing documentation, such as if they input utility for non-payroll costs but didn't provide the utility payment uploaded documents? Does the system apply logic to have a hard stop before submitting for the borrower to upload the missing item?
Yes, and that's a good question. We did touch upon that those validations and checkpoints are built into the solution. We want to ensure that the borrowers are not missing on any item just because they have missed or overlooked that. So yes, those validations are already there.
Okay, can you talk about the implementation process and how much work is provided by the bank as well as their IT team?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So there are two segments of institutions who will be using this. Most of these will be probably the institutions who were using any other solution for loan origination, as well as they might have used a manual method. What we would require from their side is the data for existing loans, which will be a one-time intake, and we are able to help these institutions. Typically, the timelines that we are looking at would be anywhere from 2 to 3 days, 48 to 72 hours for implementing right from the contract sign-off. Okay, and we have a detailed prerequisites checklist that can be shared. And again, feel free to connect with us, and we'll be happy to continue on those discussions.
Next question is whether the information from the original PPP E-Trans submission can be downloaded and input into your portal. If not, what other ways can that happen?
Yes. So as of now, the E-Tran does not allow the vendors to download this information. So, but you do have access to the portal, and you can surely download that information and provide to us.
Okay, next one is along the same line. If a lender did not do the original applications via Nugent, how do you get the initial application information into the system so the forgiveness application is pre-populated?
So we are sharing a standardized data format of the data required to achieve efficiencies into this process. Okay, and this is a very standardized CSV format which is shared containing the data that you might have submitted in E-Tran, the data required for 1502. So we do share that, and once we get the data in that format, we're able to do one-time upload into our system and allow processing of the forgiveness request.
Okay, next question is the SBA is still clarifying the details on the lender side. Will Nugent be able to keep up with the changes, and how long should it take for that to happen?
That's a good question. If you see the platform or the solution that we have has been built on a low-code BPM platform, business process management platform, and it's the same platform that has been used to provide solution accelerators like online account opening, consumer lending, commercial lending, trade finance, those kind of solutions. With the initial PPP loan origination cycle, we were able to configure the solution pretty quickly and deploy it within a couple of days of time. Okay. So we are, and again, with the latest guidelines that came on Friday, we are ready with the solution, already incorporated those guidelines and the calculators within our solution. So we are sure that once lender guidelines are issued, we should take not more than a couple of days to incorporate those.
Okay, the next question is the lender having access to download the documents, and I'm going to add to this other information for the internal file retention.
Yes, so we do export all the data and documents as part of our deliverables to the institution, because this is your data. We never have access to your data, but we allow you to download and provide you an extract for that.
Okay, next question is for compliance purposes, will you, the banks or credit unions have the ability to do reporting on the optional demographic provided information? I believe that's the fourth part of the Form 3508, if I remember correctly. Yes,
absolutely. So we do have that as part of the online application form, and because it is provided by SBA, from a compliance perspective, at least the option needs to be presented to the borrower. So we do have this along with the narrative that this is optional, and if the borrowers do not fill this, it will have no bearing on their forgiveness amount. So if the borrowers are submitting that data, surely you will have reports generated for the demographic data.
Okay. The next question is if you could please repeat how the institution would get their PPP application and E-Tran information into the Nugent solution.
Sure. So we have a standardized template, which is a CSV file format, which can be shared with the institutions in terms of all the data that we would require. So now not all the data that is there is mandatory, but it's always beneficial to have all of that. This typically would be residing either into your existing loan origination system that you used for the forgiveness or the core banking system. And this is the same approach we took for the institutions who were accepting the loan applications online during the initial phase, but did not have any method to push these loans into Etran. So we were able to take the data import one time and upload it within Nugent system and further integrate with Etran. Okay, but again, just to summarize, it's a standardized format given to the institution, and you can give us the data in that format, whether it is from your core LOS or if you are maintaining that into any other method.
Okay, next question has to do with the lender having 60 days to process the forgiveness application. Does Nugent foresee any issues with the volumes or systems for meeting those timelines?
No, so typically I would say that this is also, and I will also seek some of the insights from Jim on this. This is more to do with the kind of process and the review cycle you would have. We believe that from Nugent system with the digital channels and the continuous communication with the borrowers, we do not see any challenges in terms of allowing a processing within that time period. But Jim, your insights also on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. The whole dynamic is around making sure you collect as much personalized insight as you can. If you don't have all the information, you still can collect it. You proactively give them all the information. I mean, what's interesting about every one of these questions that's been asked today is every single one of them has to do with the information that we should be sharing with the small businesses as well. I mean, as I'm sitting here listening to the answers on subject matter that I'm admittedly not a professional on, such as PPP loans, the reality is every bit of what has been shared needs to be shared with clients immediately. There's no too early to do it. There is a too late to do it. I don't know if that answers your question or just makes it more, more questions get raised. But I think that overall, the key is to personalize it, to use multi-channels, and to reach out as much as possible.
Next question, is there any borrower help desk options?
Yes. So we did highlight that the solution has FAQ options, each and every field that needs to be captured. What is the best way to provide that? What does SBA guidelines highlight for this information? Anything that the borrowers need to know are already available. Along with that, obviously, any insights that you want to add onto the portal is something that can be embedded.
Okay, and then next question is, can loan data updates be provided as the loans are funded?
Okay, yes. So I think the question relates to the current ongoing loans, which the institutions are still taking. Yes. So once we do the one-time update of the existing portfolio of the loan, any new loans can be added as and when they are funded. So those can be added within the loans portfolio.
And just as an addition to that, the reporting that we discussed is near real time, and that can be automated to send out emails or other ways for people who aren't in the system all day long to access that information. Next question, are there any issues with somebody uploading multiple PDFs for information for forgiveness instead of just a single PDF for a specific area?
No. So there are no limitations from the system, because we do understand that while some of the borrowers may have a proper mechanism of scanning the documents as a one file, others may find it challenging and may need to have different pages. So there's no limitation as long as they are uploading the documents into the right category of documents. So we do provide that option.
And looks like this is the last question. Well, we just got another one in. So the other one is receiving price quotes for your solution. If you just contact us on the web page, the regional manager will get back to you on that. Uploading, a couple more coming in. Uploading documents, is there typical formats that you permit or not permit?
So any logical document which could be uploaded has been allowed from a security perspective. Document, TIFF, image files, PDF, Word, all of those are permitted. Surely, in terms of security, exe, zip files are restricted as of now. But if you let us know, it's something which is configurable, and we can allow that. But we do believe the current solution is sufficient as per the requirement.
Okay, next question is for Jim. We were able to do the loan phase 1 and phase 2 without a solution. Can you cover the advantages and disadvantages for somebody who's planning or considering whether to use technology or not in this?
Yeah, that's a great question. You think our industry as a whole, until March 1st, I'll pick at the date, let's call it pre-COVID, said, if it's not broke, why do I need to fix it? I think many organizations that did not have ways to open an account without a branch or without interacting with a person found themselves at a disadvantage. Not only a disadvantage as to how can you implement these things, because it was just said that you were able to implement both phase 1 and phase 2 of the loan process. The problem is, how accessible is the data? How much can you actually use it going forward? And the value of having this technology to be able to have access doesn't just play out in the PPP loan program. This technology works with you going forward with any type of lending program. In addition, it also sets you up for building digital answers for deposit services and others. So we all need to take a step. The consumer's not going to go back to wanting to go to the branch in many, many, many cases. We can't keep on putting what I call the heads in the sand and keep on trying to do things by paper. What is good, what is very beneficial, no matter how small or big your organization is, there are digital solutions out there that can scale down to your size at a cost you can afford. The problem is how much opportunity is lost. I mean, when you're taking the loans, how many loans maybe weren't taken because you didn't have the digital solution, or how many hiccups may you have when you're trying to do forgiveness? So I strongly, and this is without anything to do with any of the companies that we talk to or talk about, somebody asked me a couple weeks ago, should we be looking at putting some money into universal teller systems? And basically, right at this point, I'd say no money should go into a human-based process at this time. Any money that's available towards a better customer experience should be applied towards digital solutions. I can't emphasize it enough, because it not only takes care of today's problem, but it puts you in a much, much better position for tomorrow's issues.
Okay, and the final question, is this being recorded? And the answer is yes, and it can be downloaded via the Nugent website. So I don't see any additional questions. I want to thank everybody for the time and interest today. Any other questions, please send them to us and we'll get them answered for you. And we look forward to hopefully speaking with you soon. Thanks and have a great afternoon.